Wow, what a great event. I attended yesterday and today, and listening to both the Coast Guard Commandant and everybody who spoke, I'm becoming more and more educated and also more and more terrified. I think a great lead-in was Jonathan from New Orleans who set this up properly. I don't know about you guys, but I was completely enthralled. That situation they have over there is what the future is for my community. I'm from Fernandina Beach, Florida. If you're familiar with our layout, if Florida is shaped like a gun, which doesn't escape, me at all, and I obviously live there. The top part of the hammer would be where we are. We're right, just south of Georgia. We're right off Cumberland Island. The community of Fernandina Beach is on Amelia Island, and we're completely surrounded by water. I was elected about a year and a half ago, and I was a proponent of the anti-plastic movement. One of the issues that's been near and dear to my heart for a long time, since we lived in Hawaii when they passed an amazing resolution there, was the complete abatement of one-time use plastic bags, which is a completely separate issue that it's mind-boggling. The state of Florida will not allow us to pass a resolution restricting, counting, recording, anything to do with plastic bags because of the industry and the lobbyists. We just failed again, but we'll try again next year. But in the process of doing this, I was approached by a local resident who owns a kayak. He does a lot of eco tours, and he's here on the island. Long hair, ponytail, no shoes on, came up to me at City Hall and said, "Hey man, have you heard about the seismic air blasting?" Now, I'm familiar with this because I spent 20 years in the Navy, and I was an acoustic operator the last half of my career. We flew in reconnaissance aircraft. We dropped sonar buoys out of the back of our airplane, which sent a hydrophone down, and we listened for submarines. And there's two types of sonar. There's active and there's passive. Everything we pretty much do is passive sonar, where we're listening to the environment around us. So we train in that capacity. We learn about sound propagation. You mentioned multipath transmissions, the way it comes from different directions, cavitation, sound channels. So we know a lot about the ocean environment. And one of the things we study are whales and dolphins because they've cornered the market on how to communicate underwater because they've been doing it for eons. That's their environment. That's their air. Sound is their light. So we use that. The sperm whales find sound channels so they can compress sound into an area, and we don't know how they do it, but they can actually, and we've heard it, they can send communications over thousands of miles and can communicate with each other from their breeding ground to their feeding ground, these family units. And we don't know how they can find it. It's got to be temperature, pressure, we don't know, but it's amazing. So when we put sound in the water, it interferes with what we're trying to do of hunting these quiet submarines. So we're trying to get rid of all that background noise. So when he said seismic air blasting, I immediately remembered one of those stars on that map, or two or three of them that were in the Gulf region. And then as you can imagine with our carrier battle groups in that area recently, submarines operating in that area are a high commodity asset for us. We want to know where they are at all times, the bad guy submarines. So I've heard it, and we've heard it in training, and it does go thousands of miles, and it's a constant background noise that we use computers to filter out of the way. And in my head, I'm going, what? That can't be good, for all these animals. Because my background before all this was a huge proponent of the ocean. But since I was a kid, we talked yesterday about sea hunting and Cousteau's and all that. It's an honor to be on the same stage with the Cousteau. I can't believe I'm here. I'm just like a kid, in a candy store. But I thought, what happens to these animals? And this goes on, because we're studying whale and dolphin noise and see how they do. We're hearing those two. We're hearing it together. And the answer I got back was basically, well, it's probably not good. It's not something that we don't want to talk about. The Navy does some training with explosive buoys that use sound charges that I was involved in Hawaii, and we do mitigation for that. We send out passive buoys where we listen for the area first. We make sure there's no marine mammals in the environment before we deploy these buoys, and if we do find them we scuttle the buoys and send them to the bottom, and it stops, which I'll get back to in a second. But so I understood where he was coming from with this whole issue with sound blasting and seismic research. And I thought, hey, this is a conspiracy theory guy. This can't be happening. I mean, this at the time, it's 3.5, 4 years after Deepwater Horizon. I mean, the only reason to do this is to explore for oil, and they're not going to do that off our coast. I mean, we're Florida, we're the tourist area, the whole eastern seaboard. We have a clean beach. We had to have learned from that. So I did a little bit of research just to appease the guy, and lo and behold, we're looking for oil off our coast. I'm sorry, don't do this, wow. It's mind-boggling to me that we're actually considering looking for oil off the coast after hearing what happened in New Orleans. I mean, I'm going to New Orleans, by the way. If Jonathan's still here, I'm coming to see you, and I'm going to put this all online and show what could happen to us. just what's going to happen to these animals alone, not even think about the end result if they actually find something. These seismic companies that are applying for permits right now, they're going to blast, and they're going to do this over and over again, and they're telling us they're going to do mitigation. They're going to have somebody on that vessel that's going to listen like we did in the Navy and try to find out there's animals in the area. So I went to BOM when they came to Jacksonville, and I talked to them after an event that we had in Jacksonville Beach, and they didn't know what it was, so I'm asking questions, and he's talking about how they're going to use passive sonar to track these animals and make sure they're not there. So I asked how you're going to get dual contact on multiple sensor arrays in order to get a cross fix on where the animal actually is if it's not emitting sound. The guy looked at me and went, who are you again? So you can't, and then he said the key thing is it's only 500 yards from the source. 500 meters from the source. 500 meters is an event that I swam when I swam in high school. That's nothing, and there's no whale that's coming within 500 meters of just a ship in general. They're talking about looking visually with binoculars, trying to see animals on the surface spouting. You look, you've got sea state, you've got darkness, you've got a guy, I've stood and watched on the ship before. You're not gonna see it, and if you see it, they're gonna say, are you sure? Now you're that guy on that boat who it turns out is paid by the oil companies or trained by the oil company. You've been out there for 3 or 4 months. You don't go home until you find something and you see a whale or you hear one. And they say, are you sure? You've got to go 3 meals a day in the mess decks of these guys. You're the guy that's going to send this ship home. That's their mitigation technique. That's how they're going to keep us from hurting whales. It's not feasible. It doesn't make any sense at all. So obviously we can't do this. We can't fill the water with this sound. I mean, we just can't do it. And oil exploration, that probably, I mean, we're not going to let that happen. It just can't. I mean, it's not going to happen off our coast, but they could still seismic test. Even I went to Oceana yesterday and I talked to them. I'm jumping around, but when I did this research, I reached out and I found Oceana. And I found Erin Handy, who's a Florida representative for Oceana. And I reached out to her and she immediately got back to me. I said, hey, what do we do about this? I mean, is this real? And she said, yeah, it's real and this is really happening right now. I'm like, well, why don't we know about this? And how come this isn't all in every front page newspaper in Florida? So we introduced a resolution. And I don't know how much you know about Florida, small town politics, but this resolution caught everybody, when she got up and gave her presentation, every member of our city committee, every commissioner up there, immediately voted for this resolution to take place. They were dumbfounded as I was. I mean, it was just incredible that it was even an issue. Flew through. So I said, Erin, please use me however you want. I've been to several things with her, and it's amazing what Oceana is doing. Florida, I think the last count was about 20, 25 resolutions. The city of Jacksonville, we went and just spoke to the mayor. Their committee, their mayor just said that he's introducing a resolution. And if you know what a resolution is, it's not an ordinance, it's not a law. It's just us telling everybody else, we don't support this, we don't want this to happen. A lot of coastal Florida cities have done this. So Oceana really, really came through for that. And we go on, and all these other cities are jumping on board and doing this as well. So we can probably stop the oil exploration, but the seismic blasting, they're permitting right now. And there's more than one company. They don't share this information. It's not one company going out there and sending all this horrible sounds out into the ocean and then they're done. There's another one behind that because it's all proprietary. They're trying to gain information to sell to oil companies to say, here's where oil is, here's where gas is, and here's where it's not. And they're going to sell to the highest bidder. They don't care if a resolution or a law gets passed they can't explore for the next 5 years. That data is good for 10, 20, 30 years. They want that data, and they're going to keep it, and they're going to hang on to it. So we can't let them go out there and get the data. That's what we have to stop. We have to stop the actual testing itself for them to go out and put these things in the water and blast away. If they find it, then we end up in the situation New Orleans in 5 years from now. We're going to end up with oil rigs off our coast, and that's what people just don't get. Is they're your tree huggers, your dolphin huggers, you love the whale, whale people, but the end result is you're going to have oil rigs off your coast. I mean, I can't believe we have to go to the hill and I travel all the way up here to go tell people something so obvious that just cannot happen. So, I want to show a video real quick, if you don't mind. Can you set this up for me, because I'm not going to do it. This is it's a satirical video. Some of you may have seen it, but it kind of puts in perspective of what we're dealing with. It's really short.
Tonight, there are concerns tonight a whale found floating off Victoria's southeast coast could have died as a result of survey work carried out by an oil company. The whale was discovered by an ESSO seismic survey crew about 26 nautical miles off Lake's entrance in East Gippsland. Sharks have been in a feeding frenzy around the carcass. Local fishermen say they're concerned about the effects underwater geological work could have on marine life. However, ESSO says it hadn't started its survey when the whale was found, and the frequency given out by its equipment wouldn't hurt a whale.
This week, John Clark and Brian Dawes' attention was distracted from the election campaign by a curious story that caught their eye, but just might not have caught yours. A whale was found dead last Saturday off Lakes Entrance in Victoria, in an area where a multinational energy company is conducting seismic tests for oil and gas.
Minister, thanks for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me on the program. It's good to be here.
I'd like to ask you about this incident where a whale died this week.
Yes, very sad indeed, yes.
Yeah. What exactly happened?
This is just the one the other day,
Yeah.
in Bass Strait.
Mhm.
Whale that died of old age.
Well, it didn't, did it?
This is the one down at Lakes Entrance,
Yeah.
in the area where they do the seismic testing.
Yeah.
Died of old age.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, you don't so much know it as it's a question of likelihood. As I understand it, that's the most likely scenario.
Was it an old whale?
Yeah, I believe it was a fairly elderly mammal.
Well, how do you know that?
It would have to be, wouldn't it? I mean, you're not going to die of old age unless you're getting on a bit, are you?
Does this happen fairly often with whales?
Whales dying of old age?
Yeah.
In the areas where they do the seismic testing?
Yeah.
No, not a lot. And let me say, there was no seismic testing, as I understand it, being done in that area.
And who told you that?
The company who does the seismic testing.
Now, what is seismic testing exactly?
Seismic testing is an environmentally friendly and deeply sensitive way of firing an enormous sonic impulse into the ocean floor in order to see if there's anything down there.
And what happens if anything's in the way?
Well, there isn't anything in the way, there's just water down there. I mean, there's you've got the boat sitting on the top, and then below the boat, the blue area, that's
Yeah,
the water.
I realise that. Is there anything in the water? I mean, fish and whales and things?
Oh, there are a few critters in there, but there's a fair bit of water between them. I don't know whether you've ever been fishing, for example. You'd be aware of this ratio. There are
Yeah, sure.
a bit more water than there are critters.
Yeah, exactly. But, so there are creatures down there?
Well, no, not if you're going to fire a huge sonic impulse into the ocean floor. They get out of the area pretty briskly once the trouble starts. They're not idiots.
How do they communicate with each other?
Under the water.
Yeah.
Using sound. It's very clever. It's all sort of sonar.
How do they use sonar to communicate if the mining company's firing a sonic boom into the ocean floor?
Yes, very good question. I'm afraid I don't know the answer. I'm not a botanist.
So this is
It's not there.
still at sea.
Well, nobody knows where it is. It's disappeared, apparently.
And who told you that?
The company who does the seismic testing.
Well, what were they doing up there?
They were just out there making sure that there was no seismic testing being done,
Why?
just in case anything went wrong.
Like what?
Well, if a whale's going to die of old age, for example, you wouldn't want it to happen during a seismic test.
That's the time they were up there as well. So,
Sorry, just clearing my throat.
Okay, so the first half of that was a real report that came from Australia. The second half of that is a comedy team that just takes news instead of satire about how ridiculous it is. But a lot of that actually holds true. The seismic companies are the ones we're going to for information. They're the ones reporting back to us exactly what's taking place out there. So I asked them at this meeting, I said, what happens if you get data, and they have all these acronyms, they have PEGs, they've got PERs, which I'm a full-time bartender also in Florida, and PER is something totally different to me. And they've got takes, and a take is actually contact with an animal that makes it change its pattern. So they said, if one goes this direction when it was going that direction, that's considered a low-level take, we've altered it. And again, how do you know it went that way? With sonar. The whole thing is just ludicrous. But they're the ones who are giving us the information on what's going on. So I asked them directly, I said, obviously, worst case scenario, you do some blasting, a northern right whale, which is only less than 500 left, and you can see them from our beach in my hometown, Preston. They breed in our area. One of these things gets hit during a seismic blast, it floats to the surface, they do a necropsy, it's damage on the inside, if the eardrums are blown, you guys killed it. He said, that would obviously stop it then, and not necessarily. I said, wait a minute, he said, if you kill a whale, you're going to continue blasting. He said, well, there's numbers for that, there's mitigation. And he actually referenced the Japanese whaling fleet in the Antarctic, saying that there's still ways that we can take whale. Because I asked him about the international whaling regulations, he said there's actually rules that we can do that. I called BOEM to verify that, thinking maybe this guy had bad information in Louisiana. He got back to me, he said, actually, if we did kill a whale, or they killed a whale, it would stop. But that one boat would stop for a certain amount of time, and the rest of it would probably continue. So, this obviously can't happen. So what I'm begging you to do, my community is begging us to do, all of us who live on, anybody who loves the ocean is begging you to do is please reach out. You know, social media is fantastic. Get on there tomorrow, make this a priority. Tell your friends. I mean, this is a real thing. This could actually happen. It's not just oil exploration. It's the actual testing and looking for oil itself. This has got to stop. And my community and me personally, I'm begging you to help us stop this. Thank you very much.